Hi, welcome everybody to another reading of Lord Meher online. Today is 13th April 2023 and it's 8 p.m. 8:10 India time, and I'm so happy to see all of you all here who have made it online and who will be listening to us later. We will be starting from the online edition of Lord Meher, uh, page number 1600. We'll read a couple of pages turn by turn, and then later we'll have a small chit chat. And all are welcome. We will start today with Vijay from Pune. Yes, Vijay.
Avtar Meher Baba ki Jai. Film projects and work in India. The next day, the bazar men rushed into their bungalow when Baba was having his hair combed, which further upset Baba. For hours, he began asking the Mandli whether his identity would be disclosed. Will they tell others? The servants could not help but wonder at this strange group of men. Two were dumb and did not speak. One had long hair. They did all the cooking and cleaning themselves behind closed doors. They did not mix with anyone else. During this seclusion, the health of Baba and the Mandali had not been good also. Baba suffered headaches, chest pains, a cold and cough. His nose watered continuously and became red from so much rubbing with a handkerchief. He was irritated and seemed uncomfortable in every way. The weather was chilly, damp, and misty, and this added to his reasons for wanting to leave. He had planned to stay at Nandi Hill for a fortnight and had directed Iyengar to find a suitable place for him to stay afterward. However, on 25th April 1934, Iyengar was sent a telegram that Baba would be back in Bangalore in 2 days. Baba and the Mandli accordingly rose at 4 a.m. on the 27th and left Nandi Hill at 2 p.m. 18 coolies were hired to carry the loads of luggage. No sooner had they left the house than rain began to pour down. By the time Baba and the man descended the hill, all were soaking wet. Lakshmi had brought a special taxi with a carrier on top, in which they rode to Bangalore to stay with the Iyengars. The taxi had no windows, and the Mandali had to hold flimsy curtains in place. But despite this, rain blew inside, and the going was slow, and they didn't reach the Iyengars until 6 p.m. Their clothes were dried, and they ate a meal. Though again the three grandchildren would not leave Baba alone. Baba lovingly put up with them, feeding them himself with his own hands before he ate, though he preferred to be left alone during meals. Then Baba and the men rested. Later that evening, Baba and the Mandali proceeded to the village of Kenjeri, where Iyengar had rented a dharamshala. But the situation here proved to be much worse than that on Nandi Hill. The dharamshala was crowded with 100 people lodging there, and there was no toilet. Nearby was a small tank where drinking water was brought, but people were sticking their hands and feet into the same water to wash. The building was located on a busy road with the pedestrians coming and going, so the place was quite unsuitable for Baba. Since he wanted to work in seclusion in a quiet,
A quiet, out of the way spot. BJ, did we lose your audio?
Okay, let's ask somebody else to read. Maybe Rosalie would like to read next.
Oh, where are we? From the top nearby?
Marvin, can you?
Start with so the place was. The third sentence.
Okay. So the place was quite unsuitable for Baba, since he wanted to work in seclusion in a quiet, out of the way spot. Ironically, pictures of Shivaji and other saints adorn the walls of the Dharamshala, while the incarnation of Shivaji was greatly inconvenienced by the very people who wished to honor him. Despite everything, they decided to stay there until something else could be arranged. When dawn broke, a troop of monkeys entered the place and jumped about wildly. Surrounding them was screams. It was a startling awakening. With a smile, Baba wistfully gestured to Chanji. "This is too much. You'd better proceed to Bangalore in search of another place." Chanji left and arranged for accommodations at the Modern Lodge in Bangalore. At Kengari, after 11 days, the Mandali finally had a proper bath. Kaka went first, followed by Gustaji, and then the others. From 11 a.m. until 3 in the afternoon, Chanji could only spare a few moments for a quick wash before he had to join Baba in returning to Bangalore. Iyengar came to Kengari at 2:30 p.m. on the 29th and was painfully upset that the Dharamshala proved unsatisfactory for Baba's purpose. Baba comforted him. "I have some special work to do, which must be done in the city of Bangalore itself. So do not feel bad. It is not your fault that I am leaving here." At one point, discussions with Iyengar were held about arranging accommodation for Baba and a few of the men and women Mandali in Bangalore or Madras. The question of financial support was discussed, and the different opposition mentioned from certain former devotees, such as Mera Dastar and KJ Dastur. Baba commented, "I don't mind scandal, abuse, or even imprisonment. I am prepared to suffer at the hands of dozens of Judases, but my spiritual work for the world must not suffer. If nothing is settled and I have to disband the Mandali, my internal work will go on for the universe. Externally, I will completely discontinue my activities in the East and West. In the case of every perfect being, their external work has been done with the help of their devotees. Jesus was markedly poor in the literal sense, and his chosen disciples were poor fishermen. And yet, in the teeth of a world of opposition, his work was done, even externally. Take the recent case of Ramakrishna. Although he was not an avataric period as that of Jesus and Baba, still he was a perfect master and his working was universal. Yet his external work was done with the help of his disciples, very, very few of whom were materially well off, the rest being hopelessly hard up. As for me, the greater the opposition, the greater the force to my work. The more the obstacles, the more the fun. Baba and the group left Kangari at 8 a.m. on Monday, 30th April, 1934. Baba, Chanji, and Lakshmi rode in Iyengar's car, and the other Mandali went by taxi. While trying to pass a bullock cart, Iyengar's car ran into a herd of cows. A few cows were hit, and one calf was run over. Seeing that Lakshmi was badly shaken by the accident, Baba consoled her. "It is all right. The calf is lucky to be crushed under the car carrying me. Don't be afraid or feel bad." Then it was found that the calf was not injured, and to the amazement of all, it got up and ran away. Lakshmi was very happy. Baba first asked to be taken to Iyengar's house, where Vasumati, one of his grandchildren, was sick. Baba lovingly passed his hand over her face and directed the others about her treatment. They then went on to Modern Lodge. But as they entered the building, the manager recognized Baba and offered obeisance. That which Baba had most wished to avoid had happened, yet he stayed there for 2 days. According to Baba's orders, Pleader had stayed in seclusion for a period of time in the Panchgani cave and in a cave at Mount Abu, and afterward had gone on pilgrimage to Benares and Rishikesh in the Himalayas. He had also been instructed to keep silence. In April 1934, while Baba was working in seclusion, Pleader was in Rishikesh, staying and helping serve an advanced soul named Keshwananji Maharaj. Baba never actually physically contacted Keshwananji, but he verified to Pleader that the man was a genuine saint. Keshwananji was totally naked in all weather, except for a loincloth, even in winter. He had built a small wooden platform on the bank of the Ganges, on which he stood with a bamboo staff in one hand, gazing all day at the sun. Pleader, after Keshwananji's caretaker refused to let him see the saint and told him to go away, succeeded in persuading him to show a photograph of Meher Baba to Keshwananji. Seeing the photograph, Keshwananji smiled and then called Pleader to approach. He remarked that he normally never let any stranger come near him, but seeing this photograph, he had permitted Pleader an audience because Meher Baba was, quotes, the master of the universe, end quotes. Keshwananji Maharaj further stated, Meher Baba bears the burden of the whole creation on his shoulders. So great a soul he is. Keshwananji allowed Pleader to stay with him for some months and to assist in serving him. Baba's work was manifesting in India with full force for this cinema called the world, while in Europe, intense discussions continued about making a film centered around him, the Avatar. Baba was setting plans in motion to go to the West again. Norina, Elizabeth, and Gabriel Pascal, the film producer they had contacted, cabled Baba from New York on 28 April 1934 that arrangements were being made to begin shooting the film within 2 months, and Baba's presence was required. Baba went for a drive on the morning of 1st May and strolled in the shade at the extensive Lal Bagh Botanical Gardens. Meanwhile, Sampath Iyengar's daughter, Janaki, and his cousin, C.V. Ramanujacharti, came to Bangalore from Madras on May 1st, and Baba met them along with the rest of Iyengar's family at his house. Iyengar's grandchildren, Meher Nath and Basumati, were both ill, and Baba visited them again and advised Iyengar about family matters and personal affairs. Cutting short his tour to South India, Baba left Bangalore on the 2nd, reaching Meherabad the next day. The entire Mandali were waiting by the railway line to wave as the train passed by on its way to the Nagar station. Adi Jr. had arrived from Pune, and Bailey was at Meherabad also. Rustam arrived from Nasik and discussed plans with Baba for his film project. Frequent correspondence with Norina, Elizabeth, and Gabriel Pascal concerning their film, based on Carl's scenario, was ongoing, as well as preparations for Baba's next journey to the West. In regards to his absence from Meherabad, Baba ordered Adi Sr. to search for a suitable residence in Amarnagar, where Mehra and the women's group could stay while he was away. Bapu Brahmin and Maruti Patil were ordered to take extra care to water the garden in front of the Japti while he was away, especially the mango trees in the orchard to the south of the Japti, as Baba said that they had spiritual significance. He cited the example of Upasni Maharaj, who watered mango trees in Sakori with his own hands. And there's a footnote.
Footnote says Kalingad had built a fountain which Baba praised, and when Baba returned from the West, Kalingad was put in charge of the garden.
In Arangan, an old villager named Abaji Patel had been on his deathbed for 3 or 4 days, suffering intensely. On 4 May, his relatives came to request that Baba relieve the old man of his suffering. Baba consoled them, replying, "He will not die until he sees me. I will come tomorrow." But Baba became busy that day and went to Arangawan 2 days later, on the 6th. He saw the dying man at 6 o'clock in the evening and ordered that he be given tea. No sooner had Baba returned to Meherabad than word came that the man had died. Baba paid a quick one-day visit to Nasik on 9 May, and memo arrived at Meherabad at 3:30 p.m. on the 10th to see Baba and stayed a few days. Sailor Mama was operating a tea stall next to Circle Cinema. On the 11th, he was given certain restrictions by Baba regarding his expenses, which made Sailor become very angry. The tense situation over the general ashram finances was relieved when a cable from an arena in Berlin was received, saying that a friend of Elizabeth's in New York had arranged for 15,000 towards Baba's expenses to travel to the West and for the film work. Every afternoon or evening during this period, Baba would listen to Rao Sahib read the Persian poetry of the perfect master Shams-e Tabriz for about half an hour, at which time he instructed that no one should disturb him. Baba also enjoyed listening to Rumi's poetry, which is characterized by a depth of feeling or ecstasy and beautiful imagery. Baba once praised Rumi as one of the greatest minds of all mystical or spiritual literature, remarking, quotes, Rumi had more brains than all the pandits, philosophers, scholars, priests of today put together. Rao Sahib was once reading to Baba from Rumi's Divan-e-Shams, describing the beloved's beauty. Baba had just bathed and was sitting in the mess quarters, having his nails trimmed. Padre at one point noticed Baba's chest become flushed, his face turned pink and his eyes red. Quotes, Padre surmised, Baba's eyelids drooped as he was enjoying the intoxication of his own beauty. It was one of the rare times, Padre added, that he felt Baba was not totally there in the gross world. After listening to Rao Sahib's readings, Baba would play a game of 7 tiles with the mandali. In this popular Indian game, 7 stones or small tiles are piled one on top of another. There are 2 opposing teams. While standing at a designated distance, a player from the first team tries to knock down the pile by throwing a rubber ball at it. If the thrower's ball misses the tiles, one of the players from the other team tries to catch it. If the thrower's ball hits the tiles, the other team tries to scatter the tiles farther before the other team has a chance to pile them up again and tag the player restacking the pile with the ball. During a game on Sunday evening, 13 May 1934, Kaka was out of sorts due to Baba's poking earlier that day. During the excitement of the game, Kaka pushed Baba and then did the same to Gustaji a few minutes later. A fight between Kaka and Gustaji ensued. Baba became very quiet and then said very seriously, "It is better they were both dead than to behave like this in my presence." How dare they do this right in front of me? Their hands and legs should be cut off. The men then realized that they had done wrong to fight over such a petty matter. Baba still stayed at night on Meherabad Hill in the underground crypt cabin. As he slept in the crypt, Kaka and Masaji would stay in the room above it. On the night of the 13th, a severe hailstorm with lightning, rain, and tremendous winds swept through Meherabad. Roofs were blown off, trees were uprooted, and water cans and other small items were carried away into the fields. Some doors were jammed and required the combined strength of 3 of the men to open or close them. Baba was up on the hill at the time of the storm. Kaka, Waman, Subnis, Masaji, and Chuggin had to hold the pillars of the crypt cabin firmly. As the roof was about to blow off, Baba came out of the crypt to help, but the force eventually became so great that the tin roof was actually dancing in the wind. The severity of the storm forced them to leave the crypt cabin. Baba and Kaka sought shelter in the bathing room, while Masaji, Subnis, and Chuggin went elsewhere. No one had ever seen such a severe storm in Meherabad, and they thought that the events earlier in the evening during the game of 7 tiles had perhaps saved one of them from being seriously injured. The storm was repeated the following night, but it was much less severe.
Okay, thank you, Rosalie. Mona, you want to sign another reader?
Yeah. Elizabeth, would you like to read?
Okay. 1606 film projects and work in India, 1934. Pilo Satha, whose brother, Nusserman, was associated with Mahatma Gandhi and had likewise been incarcerated for civil disobedience, came from Ahmednagar to see Baba on the morning of 16th May with his niece, Khurshid. Baba commented to him, Nusserwan was released from prison on 8th May, but he has not yet come to see me. He has forgotten us poor people. Pilu replied, but you are rich, Baba. Yes, Emperor and Fakir both, Baba agreed, but you do not know anything about it. Baba inquired about Pilu's sister, Shireen Damania. She works very hard, Pilu said, since our mother died years ago and we were all so young. Shireen has looked after us all, has looked after all of us brothers and sisters, brought us up and managed everything in the house. Baba commented, working for and serving others and undergoing so much strain is very good. It wipes out past karmas, and even the new sanskaras, which are created, are very faint. So it is of tremendous spiritual benefit to work, serve, and undergo hardships for others. Sitting idle and always eating ready-cooked served meals without lifting a finger to help is very bad spiritually. It creates very deep sanskaras, which are difficult to wipe away. That's interesting. That same morning, as Parsi global cyclist named J.S. Irani bicycled to Meherabad, that same morning, a Parsi global cyclist named J.S. Irani bicycled to Meherabad. The young man was on a bicycle tour around the country and expressed his desire to meet Meher Baba. Surprisingly, Baba agreed to see him, and the boy was even presented with a signed photograph of Baba taken by Rao Sahib, and given a copy of Questions and Answers, which Baba instructed him to keep with him always. Maruti Patel's new house in Arangown was completed, and according to Baba's instructions, he needed a housewarming. He held a housewarming dinner for all on Thursday, 17th May, 1934. Baba went at 5 p.m. along with the Mandali and a few visitors from Nagpur, such as Sarosh and Kaka Chinchorkar. The invitees included Harijans of the village. It was observed that Bapu Brahman, a high-class Hindu, refused the invitation. Baba sent for him the next day and explained to him in no uncertain terms, quote, "If you are still inclined toward perpetuating caste differences, it is better that you leave Meherabad. I would not care in the least if you did. I will not allow my work to be spoiled by such prejudices, and I will not permit this village, which has a connection with me, to grumble and be affected because someone is addicted to such age-old intolerances." Baba wept and said, "I had labored hard the whole day and I had no appetite. That was the only reason that I did not join the gathering. I did not participate because of exhaustion, not to avoid the untouchables." Oh, Bapu wept. Bapu wept and said, "I had labored hard the whole day and I had no appetite. That was the only reason I did not join the gathering. I did not participate because of exhaustion, not to avoid the untouchables." Baba forgave him and instructed Maruti to explain this to the villagers when the next opportunity arose, so they would not take it to heart. A daughter named Shakuntala was born on the 18th to Chugan's wife, who became quite ill after the delivery. 4 days later, Baba directed Chugan to take his wife to Ahmednagar and return after admitting her to the hospital. But Chugan was in a bad mood and refused. Baba asked him why he did not want to go. Chugan replied, "When nothing avails, what is the use of going?" "What do you mean nothing avails?" Baba asked. "Everything avails. You keep night watch by my side, eat vegetarian food, do not drink liquor, and are not inclined to doing any evil deeds. Does this not all avail? Everything avails." This silenced Chugan, and Baba continued. "Mental upsets are present for all. Let thoughts come and go, but do not be anxious about them. Do not pay attention to whatever thoughts, however evil, might arise. Continue obeying me. This will set things right. Otherwise, it will mean unnecessary harassment for you and for me also. If you want to be with me, you must obey my orders. If not, then go away." So, according to Baba's wish, Chugan took his wife to a nursing home in Ahmednagar, where his in-laws looked after her, and Chugan returned to Meherabad. Financial matters had been an ongoing topic of discussion in recent months. Elizabeth and Norina were having trouble raising enough capital for the film project, and for the trip to the West, despite the recent donation from Elizabeth's friend. So Baba was considering canceling his visit. He held a meeting on 19th May, 1934 with Adi, Senior, Pindu, and Kakabaria, in which he said, quote, "If I do not leave for the West soon, some other place should be found where the Mandali can shift. Continuing to stay at Meherabad is proving an expensive proposition, considering we have to employ 4 men just to pump water for the Upernas women staying on the hill. Then there are the villagers who come asking for food and the 101 others to whom I am sending monthly support. Dhulia was suggested as a possibility where the Mandali could be employed in a motor works with Manikar's assistance. Nothing definite was decided, and Baba kept everyone in suspense until the last moment when all arrangements for his trip had to be made hurriedly. Yeshwant Rao of Sikori arrived for Baba's darshan that day after a long time. He reported that Upasni Maharaj had recently been to Calcutta and Charagur, where he had lived for many months in 1915. On the 21st, Baba issued special instructions to Baharilal to meditate at midnight for half an hour by staring into the darkness, and not to get up or move under any circumstances for any reason, even if a scorpion or snake appears and threatens to bite you. MEHER returned from Pune to see Baba and Mani on the 23rd. Later that day, Nasaran Sata also arrived at Meherabad to see Baba. On the 28th, Khan Sahib came and had a long talk with Baba, and Rustam arrived the following morning. For a few days, Baba had been dictating points and instructions to Adi Sr. about the drawing of a chart on evolution to illustrate and assist the screenwriters in their work for the film to be made in the West. Footnote.
Footnote, Adi Sr. had purchased different illustrated books on animals and evolution from Bombay, which he and Vishnu were instructed to read. Minu Karas and Babu Kali assisted Adi in drawing the chart.
On 23rd May 1934, in the room on the back veranda of the mess quarters at Lower Meherabad, Baba began dictating the, quote, theory of creation, end quote, for the first time. Baba would dictate on the alphabet board, which Jalhai or Chanji, pardon?
Jalbai.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jalbai or Chanji would read. Farah Working Bakswala would take it down in shorthand and later type it out. Adi Sr., Babu, is that Babu Kali? Is that how you say it?
I think
Babu,
so. Maybe
Babu,
Kali.
Oh, Kali, that's right. Babu Kali and Minu Pohawala were present and listened. Most of what Baba dictated was subsequently incorporated in God Speaks, so it will not be reproduced here. However, Baba did mention a few other interesting things while dictating. He began by pointing out, scientists understand evolution from the first life to the last human life, but none knows why this evolution of forms takes place. After human life, what is there? The scientists know nothing. It is all due to the evolution of consciousness that forms evolve. For example, take the body as consciousness and clothes as the body. Now, the size of the shirt is according to your body. If a hand is cut off tomorrow, the shirt might be minus one sleeve. So it is due to consciousness that the body changes. Discussing the beginning of evolution of forms, Baba dictated, the ocean was very warm and still, and due to the presence of gas and air in the water, it became rusty. Algae was formed from this rust, then gradually seaweed. The algae used to sink below from above. When it reached the bottom of the ocean, it became seaweed. From the original algae came seaweed, and from seaweed, vegetation. Baba then described in detail some unusual creatures in the evolution of forms relating as far back as prehistoric times when dinosaurs existed. One of the first gross forms of reptiles had 3 heads. It was about 175 feet long and 14 feet wide. The middle head was about 6 feet in diameter. The 3 heads were joined together. The side heads were about 2 feet in diameter. Its front part resembled a reptile, and its and the back, a fish. The front was stout and the back portion thin. Its belly was 10 feet round and tapered to a breadth of 6 feet in the tail. The middle head came to jaw with teeth, just like the fish, but the side heads had only holes connected with the gills and no teeth. All three mouths were connected with one another, and when breathing, they breathed simultaneously as it had one windpipe. Each head had an eye, so the creature had 3 eyes. From prehistoric times, birds have 2 eyes. They come under a different class, having evolved out of and beyond worms and fish. One bird is so peculiar that no one can have any idea of it, even in his wildest imagination. This bird is half bat and very large, about 15 feet high. It has 2 legs like an ostrich. Its neck is about 2 feet in diameter. Its head, however, is small, only about 2 feet when compared to its body. Its wing spread is 6 feet. Its beak is like a vulture's, the end being thick and the point being thin. The missing link is a creature exactly like a gorilla, but with a short tail. And whereas the gorilla uses its hands while walking, the missing link walks on its feet. His face is like a chimpanzee's, and his figure and gait of walking are like the gorilla's. After this missing link, the first human evolves. It is physically sexually a eunuch. Scientists may find signs of the so-called missing link in Java, Sumatra, or the Indian jungle of the central provinces, now known as Madhya Pradesh. Baba continued by explaining cycles of time and the past and future evolution of the human form.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Mona, I think it's time for another reader.
Yeah. Ralph, would you like to read? Okay. Maybe. Yeah.
One cycle is 12,000 million years. Wow. 12,000 millions. The scientists do not know anything at all about cycles, but this hint will open their eyes. The evolution of the world began 2 billion years ago, and evolution, which started from the nebula, will last until the completion of the cycle. When the Mahapralaya, the total dissolution of the universe, will take place. The human form has been evolving for millions of years and will continue to evolve. After 1 billion years, man will only be 5 inches in height at the most, but will be very brainy. In the beginning of this cycle, man was 14 feet tall and would live up to 300 years. Baba then expounded about the gaseous structure of the universe. From the nebula came the 4 elements, though they were not produced simultaneously. First came heat, then crust, rocks, and lastly water. What is there in the universe? Billions and billions of nebulae. Every nebula contains millions of worlds, and ours is the earth. What is there in the whole universe? It is gas in its 276 subtle states. Before gas turns into the first manifestation of the gross, it evolves through 276 subtle stages. None of the scientists knows about these 276 subtle forms of gas before its first manifestation in the gross. Subtle gas very gradually turns into gross form, such as hydrogen, oxygen, etc. In the nebulae, in all heavenly bodies, and in the planets, there is evolution. All of evolution begins from the nebulae. The 276 subtle stages begin from the beginning of the nebulae, which are at the source of subtle energy, pran, and subtle space, akash. The gas left over after cooling turned into air, and there is no air 100 miles beyond our Earth. This means that even before the elements, not before heat, but before water, the electron evolved.
Footnote, the gas left over from the 276 subtle gases was the most primordial combination of neutrons, protons, and electrons.
In the beginning, our world was very, very hot. After slowly cooling down, what happened? All the gas was solidified. As the planet became cooler, a crust formed. With the gradual cooling, the Earth's crust became solid and the center remained hot. Rocks were formed from the crust. The center is full of gas and extremely hot. There are natural gaps in the crust because the formation of the rocks was not regular. What happened then was, when the gas became cool, it turned into liquid. And this liquid, water, seeped in between the rocks. Rocks were turned into mountains and the valleys, and the cool gas water filled them. This created the oceans and the seas, and evolution of form begins with the oceans. Let's continue.
Thanks, Ral.
Thank you, Jay Bahama.
Oh, you can continue reading. I thought you said continue. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. This dictation continued for about 10 days until Friday, 1 June 1934, when Baba had to stop due to preparations for his forthcoming trip to Europe. Baba also at this time dictated a complete scenario from which he wished a film to be produced. The film was to be called how it all happened. It was to show evolution from the beginning to the human state, and then to include the earlier scenario Baba had dictated, a touch of Maya, which traced the lives of three characters through 5 representative lifetimes up to realization.
Go ahead, that footnote's not important.
Oh, okay. To guide the screenwriters of the film, Baba had dictated. In the beginning, either show an ocean of dazzling light without any shore, or a deep, dark darkness, which gradually vanishes into hollow emptiness. From this darkness or dazzling light comes a point of projection. A tiny point of light appears. From this point comes Akash, full space, and Pran, primal energy. These two come together with a clash, illustrating how space and energy come together in a clash. Baba drew some sketches, then continued. And here, there the sketches are for us. I've never seen that before. These things are in Hermes version effort at to render to print
Well, this could be
Lord
this
Meher.
could be additions to the online version since the original printing.
I see.
Can you put it back up so we can see the tops of the drawings? See what it says? Yeah, I think some of this is also explaining creation and its causes.
Yeah, I think that's where they got it from.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Ralph.
From this whirling chaos, the subtle sphere comes into existence. Then the primal elements of fire, water, air, and earth, nebulae, and millions of heavenly bodies.
Okay, so I think as per the, just scroll up a bit, Marvin. Just scroll up. One more. Yeah, there's a dot in the center, and then on the left
That's
side,
the point of light.
yeah, there's Pran and infinite energy, and on the right side, there's Akash, infinite space. And the second diagram, there's they've shown how Pran and Akash converge. And the third one, it says when space and energy meet, they clash, and creation begins from a spark of consciousness. And then the last diagram is there's a circle which is rotating uh, anti-clockwise. With the beginning of creation, the evolution of consciousness is propelled, and sanskaras wind, creating greater and greater consciousness. Please continue from the whirling chaos.
Yes, from this whirling chaos, the subtle sphere comes into existence. Then the primal elements of fire, water, air, and earth, nebulae, and millions of heavenly bodies show billions of huge, enormous, immense, hot, rotating bodies of mass, spinning tremendously fast, millions of suns and planets. Then our solar system and our Earth is formed, bubbling over with very, very hot gases and liquids. The Earth is to be shown forming a crust as it cools, and uneven rocks, gaps in the middle, gas liquefying, and all the liquids evolving into oceans. From the ocean, evolution begins, and algae and seaweed show the different forms for evolution, from electrons, minerals, algae, to the vegetable kingdom, and the formation of the major species: seaweed, mushrooms, grass, neem trees, spinach, then fish, birds, animals, the missing link, the story of the three characters in 5 lifetimes then begins. On another occasion, Baba described the purpose of the film he intended to be made. The film will actually demonstrate the purpose of creation, evolution, reincarnation, illumination, realization, the whole process of inner and outer progression up to the point of the fulfillment of all life, which is the union with God. Okay,
Thank you,
I'm going to
Ralph.
turn it over. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. Say, Barbara.
Yeah. Marvin, would you like to read?
The facts, as real experience, no human being has any idea of, but a God conscious perfect master sees and experiences it all every moment. The entire process will be portrayed and depicted as vividly as possible and personally supervised by me. The role of reincarnation and the 7 planes will be shown by means of charts, animation, and special effects photography. A perfect understanding of what death is will be given to man, and once he realizes it, he will never fear the inevitable death that all have to undergo. The film will aid in the upliftment of all humanity by illustrating the real purpose of life, union with God. It will portray man's transformation of consciousness in fulfilling this purpose. The film will show to people what life truly is, its goal, the mechanics of the universe, the nature of God, and lastly, how the inherent spiritual life ascends the divine ladder toward its source. Age was deeply impressed by Baba's film script and declared, "A day will come when someone will surely actualize onto film these never before revealed truths given by the Avatar and manifested to the world." During the first week of June 1934, Baba was preparing to depart on his 7th journey to Europe. Baba made all the required arrangements for the men and women Mandali during his absence by giving individual instructions to each one. Driven in the Pontiac by Adi Sr., Baba left Meherabad for Nasik at 4:30 in the afternoon of June 6th. Also accompanying him were Kalingad and Jalbai. They stopped along the way so Baba could bid farewell to the Sata family at Akbar Press. At Kushru quarters, Baba also met Khan Saheb, who wept and begged Baba to help him out of debt. Baba promised out of proceeds from his film project if it was successful. They reached Nasik about 8:30 that night. Baba spent the entire next day with Bauseb, Syed Seb, Naval, Ramju, and Rustam's families, and a few other close devotees in Nasik. In the evening, Baba attended and enjoyed very much a special exhibit of the poetry of Chandidas put on in his honor. Baba departed by an early morning train for Bombay on the 8th with Adi Sr., Jalbai, and Ramju. His visit to Nasik was meant to be kept secret, But as usually happened, somehow people found out about his presence and tried to see him for darshan. Since Baba was preoccupied with giving last-minute instructions to his close lovers, most who sought him out were turned away. In Bombay, they stopped first at Nilu's, where the Mandali stayed, while Baba went on to the confectioner's. Two persons who met him in Bombay were the actor Vinayak Karnataki, 28, and his friend Bal Babu Tavali, who after much persistence were allowed the master's darshan the next day at Nilu's. Vinayak suggested that Baba's films be made in India with a Western director and actors. Footnote, the actor's given name was Vinayak Ambikar, but he was known as Master Vinayak. He appeared in more than 30 Hindi films and directed many of them. Bal Davali was also an actor and later became a cinematographer. In 1954, he was hired to film the Three Incredible Weeks gathering. Baba, Chanji, Kaka, and Adi Jr. sailed from Bombay from Marseille aboard the SS Mongolia at 1:30 on the afternoon of Saturday, 9 June 1934. With tremendous effort, Sarosh managed to obtain a loan of rupees 1,000 and handed it over to Baba to help pay for his trip just a few minutes before the ship sailed. Footnote, Baba had told Sarosh he too could accompany them, but Sarosh's father, who was vehemently opposed to Baba, did not permit him. Adi Sr. and Rustam were told that Baba would send them to America after he returned from Europe. Baba, about 30 lovers from Bombay came to Mole Station to give Baba a hearty send-off. They profusely garlanded Baba before he boarded the ship. Those who arrived late threw garlands up to Chanji on deck, and he garlanded Baba on their behalf. It was a scorchingly hot day, and Baba gestured for his lovers to leave and not linger in the sun. But out of devotion, the crowd persisted, despite the heat, standing and waving up to the last moments of departure. Baba motioned again for them to go home, but they stood at the dock until the last blast of the ship's whistle was heard in the distance. Mongolia was an old and smaller sized ocean vessel, and on this voyage, Baba and the Mandali experienced some inconveniences. Baba typically wanted his meals in his cabin, and the purser finally agreed, in spite of the fact that it was against the rules. The weather continued to be hot as the ship traveled across the Arabian and Red Seas, and it reeled and pitched, but Baba remained unaffected by these rough conditions. 13 days later, on 22nd June, they reached Marseille, where Ruano and Rano were awaiting their arrival. Baba had previously intimated that only Ruano should be at the dock to meet them, and Rano was afraid of what Baba might say when he saw her. Before disembarking, Baba called them into his cabin and warmly embraced them. Rano whispered in his ear that she was not supposed to be there. Baba reassured her by saying, "I am pleased with you, so don't worry." After spending the day in Marseille, Baba and the Mandali took the train to Paris, joined by Ruano, Rano, and Norina. During the night's journey, Rano felt hungry, but the food was kept in a tin container on the rack in Baba's compartment. Still new to Baba, Rano did not know that she should not disturb the master while he rested. When she entered his compartment, Baba had his eyes closed and looked as though he were sound asleep. As Rano quietly took down the tin, Baba opened his eyes and motioned to her, asking what she was doing. Rano replied that she was hungry. Baba gestured, "All right, take something to eat and then go rest." Rano had been careful not to make the slightest noise when reaching for the food and was surprised that Baba was suddenly so awake. After a while, Baba sent Kaka with 2 black velvet pillows one each for Rano and Ruano, along with instructions for them to go to sleep on these pillows. They both were to keep the pillows and never part with them. Baba arrived in Paris on Saturday, 23rd June, 1934, and stayed at the Metropolitan Hotel. Rano's mother, Noni, joined the group there. She had arrived earlier and had been awaiting Baba's arrival. Soon after going to Ruano's apartment, Baba met with Karl Vollmoller, 56, the German writer, poet, and artist who was working on the film project. Footnote: Karl Vollmoller later saw Baba twice in London. Vollmoller had completed the script and presented it to Baba. Baba discoursed to him for 3 hours about creation, transmigration, reincarnation, the spiritual planes, and God realization, and showed him the chart which he had brought. Vollmoller was impressed, and Baba instructed him to write a new story based on the explanations and chart he had given. For 2 days, Baba saw people in Paris. He met many of Ruano's friends and associates, including the Duke of Richelieu, 58, who had come to know of Baba through Norina, and who was a great admirer of Swami Vivekananda, whom he met in Paris. And we have a footnote. The Duke's full name was Marie Odette Jean Armand. Oh, never mind. On the 24th, a 60-year-old man came to see Baba and said, although I have had many major, minor turning points in my life, I feel today that the main turning point in my life has at last arrived by meeting you. Baba smiled and explained to him, yes, that turning point has to arrive in each one's life. It is like a war. Every day, every hour, every minute of a man's life is a sort of minor war between the heart and mind, emotion and intellect, good and bad. And when these individual conflicts spread out and develop, the collective result eventually takes the shape of a big worldwide war, which can never be avoided by any number of peace conferences unless and until the very root cause is removed. Departing Paris for London on Tuesday, 26 June, Baba instructed Rano, Noni, and Ruano to remain behind. Traveling by train, Baba and the Mandali reached London that same day via Calais and Dover. All the master's English disciples showed up at Victoria Station to welcome him. Baba stayed at Delia's brother Herbert's apartment at 61 Campaign Gardens, West Hampstead. Elizabeth, Norina, Kitty, Margaret, and Mabel stayed with Baba. Chanji, Kaka, Adi Jr., and Quentin were accommodated in Margaret Craft's apartment, although they were with Baba most of the time. Chanji and Adi Jr. stayed nearby Baba during the day, and Kaka was with him at night. Again, there were many discussions about the actual making of a film, and the Lord of the Universal Cinema showed a keen interest in it. A corporation named Circle Productions, Inc. was formed on 28 June in order to raise money by selling shares to finance the film. It was believed that half the amount could be raised by selling stock, and the balance could be supplied by a film studio or distributor. Baba was made president of the corporation, and Norina Elizabeth Elsie Domville and the producer Gabriel Pascal were vice presidents. Meanwhile, attempts at raising money for the film projects were also being pursued in India at this time. Of the total estimated cost of 1 million rupees, 500,000 were to come from the West, and the other 500,000 from India. Prior to Baba's journey to the West, Chanji had been ordered in February to contact Akbar Haidari for help in raising the money from wealthy Indians, but Haidari had been unsuccessful. William Donkin again came to see Baba, and Baba instructed him to concentrate on his medical studies. He was with Baba most of the time and became closer to the master during his 6-day stay. Charles Purda met with Baba on the 28th to discuss his work of writing a book about Baba's life, which he had already begun. Okay, let's have one more reader for today.
Yeah, I'll read. Oh, sorry, Eva could read and then I'll read. Eva, are you there?
Or start at the top, right?
Yeah.
Tom Sharpley saw Baba the same day. Tom was a quiet, unassuming person with a deep connection. He was the type of invisible person you did not know was around, even though he was there the whole time, Margaret recounted. While Baba was in London, the Countess Kitty Palin hosted a reception for him at her home on Friday evening, 29 June, 1934. About 15 sincere people came to meet Baba, and he answered their many questions and gave explanations. One man asked, "How can I be a true Christian?" Excuse me. From the alphabet board, Baba replied, "By knowing the teachings of Christ and by living the life that he lived and wanted you to live. People speak of Christianity, but are not prepared to follow Christ's words, to present the other cheek when slapped, saying it is impractical and flying at one another's throat at the slightest provocation. They create hatred where Jesus wanted them to create an atmosphere of love and brotherhood everywhere. What wonder is it that the whole world is in a muddle about everything?" Mrs. H. Ford then asked, "But if you are the Christ, why don't people know about it?" Baba answered, "It is because people cannot know that I have to take this human form. Jesus was not known in his time, even by his own intimate, immediate companions. Judas, who was near him all the time and even kissed him, could not understand him. So do you all not understand me externally in my physical form? Because as the real infinite Christ, I am within you as I am in everybody." Someone asked why Jesus never married. Baba gave a detailed explanation, which had been dictated the year before. The avatar's exterior way of living is regulated by the habits and customs of the times, and he adopts the attitude which is most suited to serve as an example to his contemporaries. But in essence, all avatars embody the same ideal of life. At the time of Zoroaster, humanity was hesitant and lacked equilibrium. The Persians then were neither complete materialists nor really attracted towards the spiritual light. He taught them to be good householders, to marry and abstain from desiring the wife of another, and to worship God. His own life was based on this principle: good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Zoroaster was married. At the time of Krishna, the Hindus were at war, fighting among themselves. Envy and greed were predominant, and a real concept of spiritual life and love was unknown to them. Krishna-based to spiritual teachings on the laws of love and pure, innocent merriment. Human beings were joyfully directed towards a disinterested ideal of love.
Thank you, Eva.
Oh, you're welcome, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. At the time of Buddha, the people of India were deep into materialism in order to demonstrate uh, that their conception of value was wrong and that they were victims of the goddesses of illusion or Maya. Buddha renounced his wife, his family, and the riches of the world in order to establish his teachings on renunciation. At the time of Muhammad, the Arab tribesmen were very sensuous, and it was not considered bad or illegal to live with several wives. If Muhammad had not married like Jesus and had advocated celibacy, or if he had imposed absolute continence, it would have produced inevitably dangerous reactions. Few people would have followed his teachings, and fewer still would have been attracted to such an ideal. Muhammad had 6 wives, but he had no physical contact with them. At the time of Jesus, arrogance, imperiousness, pride, and cruelty were the characteristics of people. Nevertheless, they possessed a conception of justice in regard to women and marriage. Therefore, it was not necessary, as it was in Arabia, to make marriage an example. Jesus lived the life of humility, simplicity, and poverty, and he endured suffering in order to direct human beings toward the purest ideal, beloved God. The avatars incarnate in this world at different times, and their teachings have therefore to be adapted to the mentality of the epoch. At times, the avatar bases his teaching on the search for personal God, and at other times on the search for the impersonal God. It may be compared to a hospital where the sick complain of thirst at different times. The doctor will prescribe tea or coffee in the morning to those who complain in the morning, water or fruit juice in the afternoon, buttermilk in the evening, and hot milk before sleep. The doctor is the same and the complaint is the same, but the thirst is quenched in different ways according to different conditions at different times. God, manifesting as the avatar in different periods of time, quenches the thirst of man in different ways. All human beings, either consciously or unconsciously, have the same thirst for truth. Baba continued explaining about his own working. There are 3 principal ways in which I work: individually, collectively, with crowds, for the masses, and universally. When I work individually, it is with persons who are with me, or persons who are away from me, or persons who are connected with me. In some cases, I work through their material downfall, in some through their material welfare. In some cases, I deliberately bring about material downfall, but I always have the spiritual upliftment at heart in the background. In some cases, I use them as mediums to efface their own Mayavic qualities for their own salvation, and that's where I am misunderstood. But I don't mind it. I know why I do it. That is sufficient, because when to the extreme, love and hatred have the same results. All right. So
I think
She
we'll
won't.
stop here, right?
Yeah, we'll stop here. We'll continue next week from page 1618. And
Stop the recording.